Hello and welcome to Top Story. The murder of 4 French tourists in Mauritania on Monday is being linked by prosecutors in the country to Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, an Algerian-based organization whose activities show increasing signs of it spreading throughout North Africa. The police in the former French colony have made 5 arrests over Monday's shooting in the normally safe south of the country. 2 others who are thought to have escaped into neighbouring Senegal were arrested in 2006 on suspicion of belonging to the Salafist group for preaching and combat, which has since changed its name to Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb. The organisation has claimed responsibility for several bomb attacks in Algeria this year and has been linked to other incidents in Morocco. In September this year, the second-in-command of Al-Qaeda, Ayman al-Zawahiri, called on Muslims in North Africa to drive the French and Spanish out of their territories. Well, joining me now to discuss the possible implications of the murder of the French tourists is Jean-Pierre Filiou, a professor at Sciences Po here in Paris and the author of a book called The Boundaries of Jihad. Thanks very much for being on Top Story. What is the evidence, despite what the authorities are saying in Mauritania, that the people who have been arrested are linked to this organisation, Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb?
Well, obviously they are linked to the Salafist group of preaching and combat, which has 2 wings. One northern wing, we officially integrated Al-Qaeda in Islamic Maghreb at the beginning of this year, and one second wing, the southern wing, the Saharian wing, that was kept still until day before yesterday. So the question is to know if the southern wing also will get into the fray and join the terrorist world planification.
But there is no question then, is there, in your mind, that these people who have been arrested are linked to Al-Qaeda?
Well, so far they are on the loose, apparently in Senegal, but when they were arrested the past year in Mauritania, there were evidence connecting them with this Salafist group. So we know the Salafist group in the north, in Algeria, in the mountains of Kabylia, is now the new network for Al-Qaeda in northern Africa. We still have to learn how far is the southern wing integrated into the terror planification.
There have been attacks on French nationals and Spanish and Italian nationals as well in Algeria and Morocco this year, but this is the first time that this has happened in Mauritania. How alarming a sign is that?
It's always alarming and it's always a tragedy. You have different factors. First is that the terrorists want to strike a weak economy like Mauritanian economy with striking tourism, which is one of the very few assets of the country. Second is in 10 days we will have the Paris-Dakar famous rally, and they want of course to use the mediatic exposure of these sport events to enhance their media coverage. But the third thing is that probably they try to reactivate transnational network, and this challenge has been taken very seriously, not only by the local government, but also by France and US since years. So we will know very soon if the collective response can be effective and if the terrorists can be arrested very soon where they try to hide.
We've heard a lot recently about the spread and influence of this organisation inside Algeria, but how big a threat, how big an organisation is it? How much support does it have, I suppose, is the question inside Mauritania?
It doesn't have any support, especially in Mauritania where the general mood of Islam is pretty relaxed and laid back. But the question is that this network is feeding on smuggling, different kind of smuggling, smuggling of weapons, of drugs, of persons, illegal networks of immigration, and they can connect to transnational terror also. But the cooperation between the neighboring states will be, of course, be effective if it can dismantle this very network of operation.
What would you imagine the idea, the aim, the immediate term, short-term aim of Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb will be in a country like Mauritania? We can see in Algeria the idea is clearly to try and destabilize the country and change the government. But in a country like Mauritania?
Well, basically they want to, under bracket, punish Mauritania, which has a formal diplomatic relations with Israel since 1999. But what they want is to compensate their heavy losses recently in Iraq and in Saudi Arabia by showing that they are able to strike in other places. But my guess is that, and it's a tragedy, but what happened day before yesterday could have been a chance meeting, and that, like what happened in February 2007 in the desert near Medina, where also French tourists were targeted by jihadist terror hitmen who killed them, but who apparently had no plan to look for them, and they just fell on them, and they decided to murder them on the spot.
It's a minor disaster, I suppose, for Mauritania. The Dakar rally you mentioned starts in 10 days' time. In terms of the Mauritanian tourist industry, I suppose it's going to be a big blow.
Well, we'll know in the long run, but if, of course, they can pursue and arrest the murderers very soon, this could be put on their credit.
How serious a problem is Islamism in general in Mauritania? Does it have roots at all?
Well, Mauritania is an Islamic republic since its independence. So Islam is very pervasive in all walks of life, which doesn't leave a lot of space for organized Islamism. What happened is that since 2005, there was a democratic transition that ended with the election of President Abdullahi last March, and Islamists were engaged, and maybe after what took place these days, the policy will be a little bit more severe dealing with them.
On the basis of what you've seen over the last year, how serious a threat is this organization? How big a threat is it to the region as a whole? Is it becoming a regional organization already?
Well, they have networks that have been doing this smuggling, cross-bordering operation for years. And already in 2003, they could hijack 32 Western tourists. It was already the same group, and it was only after long negotiation and a military intervention that the hostages were released. So it's not new.
And I'm going to have to end it there. I'm afraid we've run out of time. Thanks to our guest, Jean-Pierre Filiu. Join us again tomorrow for another edition of Top Story. Goodbye.